Kia ora, talofa namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Cache. This is our big old podcast we record on a Tuesday. You know what we do, you know how we do, so we just go deep into Aotearoa sporting matters. And if we're going deep into Aotearoa sporting matters, we've got to set it up. We've got to set it up because this Sunday, well, this weekend, to be honest, is a massive weekend for the Warriors. The old Let's Gone Warriors. I still prefer Let's Gone Warriors, the old hashtag, the initial kind of rallying cry for the Warriors. Let's Gone Warriors. To me, it's just a whole lot cooler than Up the Waz. So I'm just going to keep pushing it. The old Let's Gone Warriors, where we have a triple whammy on Sunday. We have New South Wales Cup Warriors, top of the table, best team in New South Wales reserve grade. They are playing 11:40 on Sunday. The Wahine, they are playing 1:50 on Sunday. And the Let's Goners, they are playing at 4 o'clock on Sunday. All three games at Mount Smart Stadium. But of course we also have the Jersey Flag Warriors, the under-21s. They're playing on Saturday at 12 p.m. against the Tigers. So it's all three men's teams are playing against the Tigers. Women are playing against the Eels. Now this is massive. This is monstrous. This is ginormous for the organisation, because they're not a club. It's a franchise, so we go with organisation. We know the men Warriors, they've had 2 losses, coming off at 2 losses. Loss versus the Panthers, loss versus the Broncos. First time they've had back-to-back losses this season. And we have some major, hefty, hearty selection calls that need to be made. So it's going to be, players are playing for consistent roles, who's filling in, who's going to be the new Dally M halfback. All sorts of questions need to be answered for the male Warriors. We have the women Warriors coming off a loss in their first game of the NRLW season. And this is pretty fascinating to me, because the loss to the Roosters for the women was very similar to the men losses versus Panthers and Broncos. A notable difference was that the women hadn't played any footy beforehand. No trial games, and then you're coming up against the Roosters, who have a bunch of their players who are coming off state of origin footy. So it's not just like we didn't play any trials. Some of the Roosters are the best players in Australia who have just played the second highest level of rugby league. Because shout out to international footy. So that wasn't similar to the Warriors, but the general performance was quite similar. The Warriors women were overpowered by the Roosters. And if you look at these teams, the Panthers, Broncos, and Roosters women, all three teams were very physical, very powerful, and clinical at what they do. The 3 Warriors games, the 2 Warriors teams in those 3 games, they just happened to give up a lot of footy to those 3 teams. Against the Panthers, 45% possession. Against the Broncos, 46% possession. Against the Roosters, 45% possession. In all 3 games, the Warriors teams were below 80% completions. So if you're giving the dynastic Panthers, the dynamically powerful Broncos, and defending champs, I believe, Rooster women, the majority of possession in those 3 games, you're always going to lose. And if you're not completing your sets at 80% or higher, you're probably going to lose. So that flows into this weekend, because we've got 2 Warriors teams in the NRL level who need to set the tone at Mount Smart Stadium. It's going to be a massive occasion because there's going to be a lot of fans there to watch the women. And this is a really good women's team, I believe. This is the I kind of remind myself of the actual point I'm trying to make here as I talk through it. We talked about the men's losses. They weren't blown away. They didn't roll over. They didn't go on to concede 40 points, 50 points, as they may have done in previous seasons. They just hunkered down, got through the game, did their best, rolled through adversities, the injuries, and all that shit that's happened for the men's team. The women, against that Roosters team, with the amount of errors, adjusting to the NRL level, NRLW level, the Roosters could have put 40 points on the women quite easily. But the women stayed at it. The women were gritty in only losing 6-30. So in all three games, the Warriors have been overpowered. They have lost the game convincingly generally, but not necessarily on the scoreboard. And in all three games, they have shown a bit of heart, a little bit of mana, some grit in those performances. So there is like a foundation at the Warriors right now of really impressive attitudes. And I am curious how that looks on a massive occasion at Mount Smart Stadium. Because I'm a bit dubious about how the Warriors men perform on those big occasions. I'm curious how the women step up to with another game, because I expect them to be a whole lot better, and they are a very good team. They're fast, they're powerful, they're skillful, they've got a fantastic half, and Patricia Maliepo, she was awesome in that game. We'll talk about a lot of this stuff later on in the podcast. But then you add in the New South Wales Cup Warriors, who are the most dominant team in New South Wales Cup, and a under-21s team on Saturday that is, I think they're top 8 now. Yes, they are 8th, and the West Tigers are 7th. Let me check in with the New South Wales Cup ladder. Warriors 15-1, no biggie. And they are playing against the Western Suburbs Magpies, who are 8th. 3 losses, we have seen the Warriors be overpowered, but show foundations of very impressive mana and grit. Now we come into a massive weekend at Mount Smart, where we are going to see what the organisation is actually made of. NRL team still hunting a top 4 spot. What do the women have? Can they actually compete for NRLW finals? Best team in New South Wales Cup, and an under-21s team that appears to be on the rise. And I was chopping up those under-21 jersey flag highlights, and I'll finish here because I got a bit of a hot take. I think Jack Thompson's actually better than Jet Cleary. And you can do your own research about Jack Thompson, but Jack Thompson, the Aussie half from Cessnock, he is awesome. And Jet Cleary's pretty good. Luke Hansen's pretty good. I really think Jack Thompson's the goods, though. So there we go. Nice little Warriors introduction to get the juices flowing. Swing a leg. Do a couple of arm swings there. Flesh out a hot take. Good little warm-up.
Yeah, that's the way to start a podcast. How did the Warriors women not have a trial game beforehand? Like, is that just one of those things where because there's a Tasman Sea between them and the rest of the competition, it was just kind of unfeasible to get around to that? Because it reminds me a lot of the Wellington Phoenix women when they started, and frankly, the Wellington Phoenix the men's team have had the similar struggles as well. It's like getting prepared, like starting seasons poorly because getting prepared for them is difficult because it's hard to get those good preseason fixtures in against like A-League caliber teams. Like the Phoenix aren't going to get there by playing against Central League sides, and the Phoenix women have had similar difficulties, I think, because, if we're being honest, people tend to think there's less money to spare when it comes to the women's teams than the men's teams, and so maybe the preseason trip to Australia doesn't always fit the accounting bill. I don't know, but like that does surprise me for a team that's coming fresh back into the competition after several years away, effectively a new team because you got a new squad and you coach and all this, and then you got to play your first game away against the defending champs without much preparation. Like, I guess the good thing about that is that it's the kind of excuse that only lasts 1 week, right? Like they couldn't have had a harder reintroduction into the competition, and it sounds like I saw bits and pieces of it, but it sounds like from what you're saying, like they put in a shift. Maybe weren't quite ready for that, but they put in a shift, and so they will be better for that next week and onwards and onwards and onwards. And you can normally expect a team like that to make those not even incremental, but like quite significant strides from week to week to week as they get into the speed of it again. So I guess that's it's a steep one, but you kind of want it to be a steep one because you want to be able to to find where that level is as quickly as possible. But it does surprise me that they didn't manage to get like trial games against other NRL teams beforehand.
Yeah, I'm not their logistical manager, so who knows?
No,
Like,
you're not to blame.
yeah, I got no idea. They would have their reasons. They would know better than me. I do think it's quite specific to the Roosters, though, because they're defending champs. They're an awesome women's team. But they also have a lot of state of origin players who are coming off that series. And I think if the Warriors women had played, who else lost in their first round? Tigers, Raiders, Titans, Knights, or Sharks. I think that Warriors team could have won those games. They might have been able to beat the Bulldogs, Cowboys, Dragons. Probably not the Roosters or the Broncos because they're very powerful, high-profile, high-octane teams. So I think it's quite specific to the Roosters, but also the Warriors are two players with not lots, but two really good NRLW players, Lavinia Tohalaliku and Maya Hilmawana, weren't playing. So Tohalaliku would have been the left winger, I imagine. She's out injured. She was so good in the New South Wales Women's Premiership as a Mangere East junior for the Sea Eagles last year that she got a mid-season call-up to the Cowboys NRLW squad. So I think she would have been useful on the wing. Maya Hilmawana, she's just a big bopper middle forward who wasn't considered after giving birth to her son in April. There's another forward, Felila Kia, who is currently injured. She's got NRLW experience. So not only are you coming up against a high-profile Roosters team, but you're doing so missing 3 players in your squad who have NRLW experience. So that was a little bit tricky as well. But like the caliber of players in that women's squad, like I think there's some youngsters who were thrown into the deep end who might not rise to the level straight away. But there's other players in that team who lost to the Roosters who they come from fantastic rugby, high performance kind of setups who were thrown into the deep end. Like they were all thrown into the deep end without that kind of warm-up action. But they're going to be better, like Michaela Brake, Taisha Ikanasio, Patricia Maliepo, Shakira Baker, Lydia Turoa Quidle. They were all thrown in the deep end. They're going to get better from that experience. So I think maybe they were just willing to just go into this game without that experience and see what happens. And I think they have the ability to make improvements very quickly. They got a good coach who has won NRLW championships. And I really liked what I saw. So I want to get some analysis going in later on the podcast. But they are a very dynamic team. Like, Api Nichols was good, but she also dropped the ball more than anyone else. Like, those things aren't going to happen. Michaela Brake, the rugby union players. It's amazing how many like small details when you're watching NRL or good NRLW teams that you don't notice. But then when you're watching the Warriors women's team in their first game of NRLW against the Roosters, you notice that those small details aren't being done. So it's like things like getting rushing to get behind the kicker so you're onside, making high energy efforts to get square at marker. All these little things when you're watching the regular NRL flow, they're all done. But if they're not done, they stand out. And that's what I noticed for the Warriors women, but that's a learning curve. Those are players playing their first game of high-level rugby league who are trying to do all the details when they're absolutely buggered. So that's going to be tough. But it was, yes, very impressive in a kind of big loss. And sets up a massive weekend coming up. And in our job, we have to kind of look around the media. Excuse me, have to look around a few websites. Apparently, one of the biggest stories in New Zealand sport was James Roberts' like drug conviction in Australia. That was on stuff, and I was like, what's that got to do with New Zealand? But he's a former NRL player who, yeah, whatever. But you could see the headlines about the Warriors woman. Big loss, first game. You could see all the kind of typical storylines being rolled out. And that is something that I've also noticed with the Blackcaps squads. Because whether it was the T20 Tri-Series squad or the Test squad that has just been announced, the headlines are all about the players who aren't there. So, New Zealand Herald this morning, contracted Blackcap Michael Bracewell chooses the 100 over Test series. Kane Williamson opts out of Zimbabwe Test series. Whoop-de shit. We know contracts don't matter. We know Kane Williamson probably, like, we're just assuming that he's not going to play. Me and you and our listeners are under the assumption that Kane Williamson will not be in Blackcap squads. If he pops up, it's a bonus. Kane Williamson has not given any suggestion that he's going to play for the Blackcaps anytime soon. I hope he does. I think he will. But not like all he's doing is not playing for the Blackcaps, right?
Yeah, and he hasn't come out and said, I am going to play this series, that series, this one. I'm going to skip this series because I've got a contract with Middlesex or whatever. Like, he hasn't exactly been clear about that. I still think, I think he'll be playing all the test matches that are World Test Championship series, which this one isn't, which is a reason why he and also Michael Bracewell, because that's the thing, is we're out here prepared for Kane Williamson not to be there, but then Michael Bracewell did the exact same thing. And he has a Central New Zealand cricket contract. So, like, that's kind of the only difference between their situations. They've kind of made the exact same decision, but it's like, oh, well, Williamson doesn't have a contract, so blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but Bracewell does. And he did the same thing. So I think it's kind of, that's not the issue here so much as this perhaps just not being a priority tour for the Blackcaps. Like, they're all priority tours, but there's priorities on top of priorities, and this isn't like, no World Test Championship stuff. However, we did see a couple other veterans pop up, didn't we?
Yeah, well, just hold on. Like, the World Test Championship is the best test competition in the world. because it actually involves more than two teams. So to me, that's quite important. And so, and like throughout the New Zealand cricket announcements, they're back in, like, New Zealand cricket are discussing these things with Kane Williamson and Michael Bracewell. They're working with the players. This is no drama. Well, not but like we know Kane Williamson, we assume he's not going to play. We have hope, but we assume he's not going to play. And Michael Bracewell, shout out to him. Shout out, like, okay, maybe if it's a World Test Championship, he's there. Is Michael Bracewell a first 11 Test cricketer right now? I don't know.
Probably not.
Because
Probably not.
Mitchell Santner, one of our best T20 cricketers, he's better than Michael Bracewell. Ajaz Patel's a better spinner than Michael Bracewell. Glenn Phillips might be a better Test all-rounder than Michael Bracewell. Am I concerned about Michael Bracewell not being there? No. In the Test setup, he's a very useful cricketer to have in the depth pool. But to be honest, I don't think it'll be long before Adi Ashok is pushing for Test selection, and Michael Bracewell might not play any more Test cricket. So, like to me, when I'm looking around the coverage, because it's the same thing for the T20 Tri-Series, the things that are being highlighted are non-issues. They're not important. Devon Conway dumped from the T20 team. Yeah, because he was kind of sucky. And as you said, there's a couple of veterans in this squad who are very lucky to be there. Mainly Devon Conway, who averaged 20 in Test cricket in 2024. Maybe Henry Nicholls, who is currently averaging 16 in the county championship. So that was a little bit weird, those selections. And that's, we've discussed that there might have been like a good opportunity to select young batters to go with a younger squad. They have gone younger because Matt Fisher's there as a surprise selection. But I just zoning in on those two batters because the surprising selections for me, Matt Fisher was one, Henry Nicholls and Devon Conway certainly were. Neither of them are in my all-format first 11. But they're experienced cricketers, and I've got too many thoughts going on in my head. Let me just chill out. They're experienced cricketers who will get an opportunity in Zimbabwe. I'm okay with that. I'm not mad at that. I'm not complaining that Reece Mariu isn't there. Like, whatever. These are two solid Test performers. Like, I don't know if they're going to be first 11 players, because what do we got? We got Tom Latham, Will Young. Then we need a number 3. But that might be Ravindra. Then we got Daryl Mitchell. Tom Blundell's going to be the wicketkeeper. Glenn Phillips is going to be there. And then there's a whole arsenal of seamers. Like, I don't even know if there's room for Henry Nicholls and Devon Conway in the Test squad, but if they're part of the squad and they want to step in for a Test or two, maybe even score some runs because that's the thing they need to do the mostest, all good. How are you feeling about Nicholls and Conway being in there?
Well, when you lay it out like that, I think one of them probably does need to be in the 11 because probably a better shot. Because normally you see, I guess the way to work around that would be if you just move Phillips up to 6 or Phillips to 5, I guess, and Blundell to 6 rather than Phillips at 7, and then you have you just pick an extra couple of rounders. So you might pick Smith and Santner and even potentially who else would that even be? No one. There's no one else there that would do that. So you just have to have Patel, Henry, O'Rourke, maybe as the rest of your. Is that 11 or is that 10? I can't remember. Yeah, whatever. So I did wonder if maybe because I did think that was like Nichols and Conway were going with both of them. Like, was this not an opportunity for someone like Reece Madiu who would forecasted that potential in the past? And then I thought, well, yeah, I mean, he's kind of an opening batter though, and I don't know if opening batting is necessarily the spot that well, Conway maybe, but certainly Nichols isn't filling that spot. But then I wondered as well whether this was another like Tom Blundell was kind of struggling for form for a lot of the last 2 years as well. He came out of it a little bit towards the whenever it was that they last played Test matches, but there's really only one wicketkeeper on this tour, I guess. Devon Conway is also the backup wicketkeeper, which is how he often gets into a lot of these squads, is because he can keep wicket a bit. I guess Tom Latham maybe as well. So I don't know if you'd want to lump that on him as an opening batter and the captain and a wicketkeeper. It's maybe a little bit too much for one fella to take care of everything. But yeah, that was one of my first thoughts looking through that squad is like they didn't really pick any bolt. Well, they picked one bolter. Matt Fisher came kind of out of nowhere. I don't know if anyone had that one on their bingo card for this Test squad. But then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, well, this isn't ignoring Reece Madiu because they hardly ever do that for the Test squad unless they've got an immediate thing of like you need to play. They don't pick development players for Test squads. The way you earn your way into Test squad is you got to make that jump up. Well, first you play a little bit of New Zealand A stuff, and then maybe you play a bit of white ball cricket, and you sort of you start to build a little bit of a name, a little bit of a profile as an international cricketer, and then maybe your Test opportunity comes up a year or two down the line. Well, Reece Madiu has already done that. He's already played for New Zealand in other formats. He's already on that pathway. Someone like Aotearoa as well, he's already on that pathway. Like, that's kind of that's how they develop players for the Test squad is to use that sort of like jump between domestic cricket and international cricket. It's not straight to the Test thing unless there's immediate need for someone. And I think even with someone like Fisher, that's still kind of the case with him because this is a squad that doesn't have Ben Sayers or Kyle Jamieson, and Tim Southey's only recently retired. They are at a rare spot where they're dipping a little bit deeper into the pool there to find another seamer, and also I think he maybe suits that kind of like because I guess the other thing is a lot of the other seamers you see, Milne or Ferguson or whoever who do play decent amounts of cricket. I mean, I think Milner's in the limited over squad, isn't he? Those guys aren't going to play Test cricket because they're not stretched out for that. There's kind of T20 specialists or at least white ball specialists these days. And yeah, it's kind of a unique little situation that's a unique little alignment that's led to Matt Fisher turning up, but he does bowl with a bit of heat, doesn't he? Like you've got, I might as well ask you for the scouting report on him, but he brings a little bit of heat, and that is something that like Will O'Rourke can bowl pretty quick. Ben Sayers can bowl pretty quick. Like the guys they're trying to bring into the Test team are guys who bowl faster or do something a little bit different, a little bit extra to the average, like even to the average, like good high performing Plunket Shield bowler. And even someone like Jacob Duffy, also in line for the other guy in line for a potential debut here, he is someone who himself, like, he's not a fast bowler, but he's certainly added a little bit of pace in recent years as well. He's definitely upped that. He's taken the speedo over a little bit more than he once did, and also has had superb form in limited over stuff, which again is the pathway to get into the Test cricket. Is you got to show it at other levels at other opportunities and international stuff. He's done that as much as anyone, and I don't think his inclusion was a surprise at all. But there were a couple other surprising ones out there.
You just got to run on your toes. That's all you need to do. Little
Yeah.
teaser for your mindfulness there. Just got to run on your toes, and everything's going to be honkadory as Jacob Duffy has done. Run on your toes, and you'll add 10 kilometers per hour to your bowling speed. Matt Fisher might not play, right? Like he's there
Yep.
in the squad, And I think he is there as a development exercise. Because we've seen it. You alluded to the development process of Blackcaps. They play T20s first. They'll play the ODIs first. That's why us as people who cover Kiwi cricket, and I would recommend Kiwi cricket fans, don't get your knickers in a twist when the big donnies aren't playing a random ODI series. Just a series, not a bilateral series or a trilateral series or the lats on your back, that type of series. We're just talking a cricketing series between two teams, and then we come into a tri-series. Like, it's just a tri-series between three teams. It's not a trilateral series. When those things are happening, hearty Kiwi cricket fans need to be tapped in, because those dudes who are playing are the guys who are rising up the pipeline. They're going to get the opportunities later on. That's why those series are so fun, and that's why, to be honest, Kiwi cricket fans show out regardless of the format, regardless of the opposition, because they want to see New Zealand's cricketers, regardless of where they're ranked on the depth chart, do a job for New Zealand and have a bit of fun. Matt Fisher is a wee bit different to some of the others. Reece Muriu was a bit weird because his best format is the longest format, but he made his ODI debut. But a different situation with the players available. Matt Fisher, he bowls fast, but his best format is first-class bowling. He averages 24.1. Second best is one-day bowling, 25.9. Now, unlike Ben Sears, his worst format is T20 bowling. He averages 41.7. So he has been selected, I believe, as a development exercise. Now, remember, he didn't go to Bangladesh with New Zealand A. So he's kind of been picked outside that pool. But he's also been picked as a fast bowler for conditions that I don't necessarily think they're going to be juicy. Right? They're not going to be Christchurch or Dunedin. It's going to be in Africa, in Zimbabwe specifically. So if you're thinking about the type of bowlers you might need someone quick with a little bit of extra juice. But again, I'm not necessarily looking at Matt Fisher as like he's definitely going to play. No, they just integrate people. They incorporate them into the squad. What's it about being a black cap? How do you conduct yourself? How do we train? Now again, Matt Fisher, does he have a New Zealand cricket contract? Well, he does, because he's contracted to Northern Districts. Does he have a Blackcaps contract? No. Do Blackcaps contracts matter to us? No, because Matt Fisher just got selected. Well, I think the Ben Sears injury might have helped him a wee bit. I think there was a similar case for the T20 Tri-Series. I'm not sure who was selected there. Can't remember off the top of my head, but someone got promoted with Ben Sears not being, he's out injured. So to me, it's just okay, we've got this X-Factor seamer whose best format is red ball bowling. We're just going to take him on tour and see what happens. This is, again, Sam Wells, the selector. He has already made significant waves in promoting emerging talent for the Blackcaps. But now we have the combination of Sam Wells and, I mean, in the space of, I think it's 2 years, he has overhauled Blackcaps selections. We don't need to get into the weeds of like the Neil Wagner situations and all these things that have happened, but it's pretty clear to me Sam Wells has reinvigorated Blackcaps selections across the three formats. Now we're morphing him in with a new coach in Rob Walter. So that leads me to maybe the time has come for Glenn Phillips to play a more prominent role in the Test team. What does that look like? Looks like a batting order, top 5. Tom Latham, Will Young, Rachin Ravindra, Daryl Mitchell, Glenn Phillips. That's how you don't have Henry Nicholls or Devon Conway, is you give one of the New Zealand's best younger cricketers more opportunities. I think Rob Walter, he might be aligned with that. And if we go further, Tom Blundell, number 6. Then we need an all-rounder. We got Nathan Smith. I think he's going to get a decent crack in that role. So then we got 4 more bowling spots. We can go with Mitchell Santner and Ajaz Patel, Big Warzer, Matt Henry. Okay, we don't necessarily... Maybe we keep Santner as an all-rounder spinner. We don't need Ajaz Patel. Jacob Duffy in for Patel. That's a fantastic test team for this situation, I believe. Because Smith and Santner, really good batters. As I noted, I think it was in last Thursday's paid section of our newsletter, Nathan Smith and Mitchell Santner, 2 of the best batting bowlers for New Zealand. If I said that correctly. So Smith is a genuine number 7. Santner can bat 7 or 8. Like, that's awesome. So that's how you cover the promotion of Glenn Phillips up the order to make sure... Now, I'm not going to be mad if Devon Conway or Henry Nicholls are playing, but that's how we build a team without them. Shout out to them. Seem like good lads. But we want a different Blackcaps first 11, I think. And so I think there's like... My overall point here is that maybe the Rob Walter tinge is already in the squad. Because Sam Wells' tinge is in every squad because there's a very fresh look to these Blackcaps squads. But maybe as Rob Walter's first... Well, he also had the Tri-Series squad, but this is his first test squad. And I think there's an opportunity for him to make a move. And maybe that move is a bigger role for Glenn Phillips.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that happening, and I think because Glenn Phillips, I was just checking this before because he debuted at number 5 against Australia. It was sort of like a one-off test. He didn't play again for a couple of years. Batted at 5, got a 50, and then got a duck. So little column A, little column B. But he hasn't batted higher than 7 since then. Almost all of his cricket since then is, I think, he's like another 14 or 15 tests or something like that. Has come at 7. A couple times he's slid to 8 because of whatever, I don't know, night watchman coming in ahead of him or something like that. I don't think anyone thinks number 7 is Glenn Phillips' best position. It's certainly a position where he fitted well into the team. It was his avenue into the squad, where it was like, this might not be your ideal role, but this is how you can play test cricket, is by adapting to this and doing what the team asks you. And so he's had some nice knocks in there. I think there's 450s, quite a few like sort of 40-odd not outs as well, which could have been 50s, but he hasn't scored 100. He's got 700 and something runs without scoring a century, and he's not ever really been in a position where he could score a century. I don't think Glenn Phillips is complaining about that. I think he's happy to do his role, whatever it happens to be. But I also think that from a Blackcaps perspective, those are the kind of guys you do eventually want to reward with an expanded role that's maybe a little bit more in their suiting, a little bit more to their natural game, which for Glenn Phillips in Test cricket would be batting at number 5. Or maybe 6, but probably 5. Because I think you keep Blundell at 6 regardless. As we saw over the last couple of years when there was a little bit of a clamour to maybe put Phillips up to 6 and Blundell at 7, which I myself was part of. I would have thought, like, just put your better batter in, the more informed batter in slightly higher so he gets an extra partnership in his innings. But I also see that they kind of just like... They had a little bit more of a prescribed role for how that batting order was supposed to look, and they wanted the keeper at 6, and they wanted that sort of like hard-hitting all-rounder at 7. That has been Glenn Phillips to this point, but yeah, as I say, I think I could certainly see that where it's like he's paid his dues there. It's now an opportunity for him to get a crack, even if it's not a full-time thing. He might well go back to 7 later when Williamson comes back in and everyone slides down a spot or something like that, or maybe someone else, or whatever the future may hold for us. I can see that happening with Glenn Phillips. I think the other guy in that angle that you could say similar things about is Will Young, because he's not really a natural opener. He'd be a natural number 3, and so there might be a case to say, you have been doing a lot of opening, and you've also scored a lot of 50s without yet scoring a Test century. Based on what Wiaan Mulder's did for South Africa and Zimbabwe overnight, they're in 67 not out. Shout out to the bloke for declaring while he had the world record total in sight. I do love a bit of I mean, that fits in with the theme of what I'm saying here about selfless cricketers just putting the team first before themselves. I remember Stephen Fleming doing that once upon a time in Sri Lanka, way back when. Like Will Young might be someone who has a similar case of maybe this is an opportunity to put him in his ideal position, although I don't know if that works quite in the same way because it's not like a promotion up the order. It might even be something that like I think targeting that opening spot might be better for his Test spot moving forward. So I don't know, but it's maybe with him it's just a little bit more of like here's a chance on what looks like they're likely to be very good batting conditions. Go out and cash in kind of thing. Tom Latham, I remember, like we haven't been to Zimbabwe for about 9 years, but Latham did play the last time we went there, and he turned up on that series. He had a big time of it. So nice little opportunity because Will Young scored 1,000 odd runs without yet scoring a century. There's actually not that many. I was looking at the list. There's not that many New Zealanders who have scored more runs than that without getting 100. The record, funnily enough, Tim Southee. I think he's got to about 2,200 runs without scoring 100. No surprises there. The other thing I noticed, the other little sneaky stat thing I noticed there looking at Glenn Phillips's thing is that, and again, fitting into his just sort of like not trying to pad his own numbers, trying to pad the team's numbers. What does this role entail? What am I being asked to do? A lot of that is batting with the lower order guys, which means trying to bat quite quickly, pile on a few extra runs, make the most of those last couple partnerships before the end of the innings. So his average is only sort of like low 30s as a result. He's not really able to preserve his wicket. He has to take more risks because of that role. But his strike rate is very high. His strike rate is like 72. And on the list of all-time run scorers for New Zealand in Test cricket, there's only two guys who have scored more than the 700 odd runs that Glenn Phillips has got at a higher strike rate than what Glenn Phillips is currently. Not a trick question, probably the two most obvious answers, but you're welcome to take a guess.
First name that came to mind was Jesse Ryder, but I don't know if he meets your threshold.
He got a double century in Test cricket, so he probably scored at least 1,000 odd runs, but no, it's not. He must have taken his time a little bit more.
I don't know, hit me.
Tim Southee, Colin de Grandhomme.
Yeah, definitely not a trick question. Fair points. Good stuff there. I will say, though, we do have War at number 11, so it's not like, we got some batting down the order.
We've got that upgrade,
Nathan Smith, maybe. Mitchell Santner, maybe. Matt Henry, maybe. Like, these dudes aren't crappy batters, and sure, some of the War stuff I'm kind of taking the piss, but I can't be taking the piss with Matt Henry, Mitchell Santner, or Nathan Smith. Like, they are not necessarily pure tail enders. Like, they are pretty good batters.
Well, Santner has a Test century, which Glenn Phillips and Will Young don't. So,
There you go. The one thing I was talking, to be honest, I think they will open with Devon Conway. Like, that's what I think they will do. But I still want to, because, Will Young, I don't think his best position is to open. I think his best position is 3 or 4. But I do think this might be a good opportunity to get Ravindra into number 3. So that's why I've gone with Latham, Young, Ravindra, because I do think he is someone who can just plug into that hole without Kane Williamson. Sure, we can get into nitty-gritty, is he a number 4? Is he a number 3? Is he a number 6? Is he a number 7? Who gives a shit? I just want Ravindra in that slot because he might be the best batter in the team. So let's give him a crack. And I do want to touch on some T20 pockets in the back end of the podcast, and Ravindra is going to be in the spotlight. But I do have one little stat nugget because, if you do anything against England, you're the greatest cricketer in the world. That's a fact.
I noticed all the English people getting upset about Wiaan Mulder's not going past the Brian Lara 400, which of course was set against England. So I think that might have been a contributing factor.
Like if you take 5 wickets against England, best bowler ever. If you score a century against England, you're the best batter ever. So from those files, we got Shubman Gill. I like Shubman Gill, very likable cricketer, good cricketer. He averages a whopping 58.8 against England and a very impressive 32.4 against New Zealand. But this isn't unique. There's some sort of thing, and we saw it last summer with the Aussies and Virat Kohli. That the Aussies view Virat Kohli as their own. He's so competitive. Virat Kohli, King Kohli, like he is a superhero in Australia. And that's the Virat Kohli who averages 38 against New Zealand. But he averages 43 against Australia. He averages 42 against England.
Now, wasn't Jasprit Bumrah as well?
So Jasprit Bumrah, very good bowler. I can't say he is overrated. Like, he is genuinely the best seamer right now. Like, him and Rabada, for me, are the best seamers in the world, and I'm going to put Matt Henry in there. Shout out to Australia. Yeah, Hazelwood's all right. Pat Cummins to the right. They're okay. They're okay.
Nah, they're all too old.
But my only experience of watching Bumrah is him playing against New Zealand, where he averages 45.
There it is. Hey.
What does he average against Australia? 17. What does he average against England? 22.6. The only nation Jasprit Bumrah averages more than 25 against is New Zealand, and he averages 45. The only nation, test-playing nation, that Virat Kohli averages less than 40 against is New Zealand. He averages 38. Does Shubman Gill have a century against New Zealand? No. He's also got the lowest strike rate of the teams he's played tests against versus New Zealand. So he's got a strike rate over 60 against the other Australia, Bangladesh, England, South Africa, West Indies. Got a strike rate of 55 against New Zealand. But of course, score a few runs, take a few wickets against Australia or England, whew, you're in the Hall of Fame. And it's a Hall of Fame decided by those people. Righto. We're from the Niche Cage, theniche-cage.com. Read about some Aotearoa sporting matters if you want to. Might as well just click an ad while you're on the website, because that's quite useful to us. And also quite useful to us is the Patreon whānau. Shout out to everyone funding our mahi through Patreon, patreon.com/our niche cage. Every Thursday we send out the bonus podcast, just us talking more Kiwi sports shit, to the Patreon whānau. And also we copy the full newsletter, free section, paid section, straight into Patreon. So that is there for the generous folks as part of the Patreon whānau. That newsletter does come out via Substack, the nichecage.substack.com. That is fully free. Niche Cage, whole lot of shit sent straight to you. And it forms the basis of a podcast kōrero. But there's also that paid section. So if you could become a paid subscriber on Substack, the Thursday edition has the bonus podcast, and the Monday and Friday there's a whole nother paid section full of even more Kiwi sporting notes as part of that. You can donate through Buy Me a Coffee and just have a watch, have a comment, have a like, have a good time with all the Niche Cage stuff as we do our best to give you the Aotearoa sporting coverage that you deserve and that we want to do. And we always want to do a bit of mindfulness. What do you got?
I've got from the pen of Herman Melville, the bloke who wrote Moby Dick, which I'm currently reading, and I think this quote comes from that, but I'm not up to there, so I don't know who says it. Probably Ishmael, because he never shuts up. But the quote goes, "I try all things, I achieve what I can." So give it a nudge, give it your best nudge, and if it works, it works, but don't worry about the outcomes. Just, have a crack.
Beauty. I don't need to add anything, but I will quiz you on Moby Dick, because I've also started to listen to the Game of Thrones audiobooks. So I've taken the leap into some of that. Try not to listen to it before bed, because some of the stuff is
some content warnings. You don't don't want to carry those into your dreams necessarily.
Yeah, I'd rather carry Lao Tzu or some,
Yeah.
Roman Empire history and stuff like that into my dreams. But I do enjoy the Game of Thrones audiobooks, and you're reading Moby Dick. I don't know a lot about Moby Dick, so you got any little Moby Dick anecdotes for us? Maybe just one.
Yeah, I got one. There's like I'm only like 20 or 30 pages into it. I literally started it yesterday, so last Sunday, but weekdays don't count. Um yeah. It is a book of its time because there's a bit like in one of the first few chapters where the guy's trying to find somewhere to sleep for the night, and he's like before he jumps on a whaling boat and gets involved in all this, and he ends up having a sort of top and tail with a what is referred to as a, I think he just calls him a cannibal or something like that. He's some form of foreigner who is going around trying to sell a an embalmed head that he got from New Zealand. So that was a bit of speaking of content warnings, that was a bit of a shocker. It was like, hey, New Zealand mentioned in this famous book, and then oh shit, that's not the mention I was hoping for.
And I imagine the time period was
1850s, something like that.
so it could have been a Pakeha head.
It could have been, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm guessing probably more likely the Tamoko was the selling point of why you would want an embalmed head, but yeah, it's a little bit of a gruesome note that I wasn't well, I suppose it's probably a gruesome book. I don't know what I was expecting.
Yeah, it's about whale hunting.
It's about whale hunting, so I don't think we're supposed to look at those characters as like these are the good guys. I think it's a bit more like this is a brutal life and these are crazy complicated people.
Yeah,
So in that case, yeah, so far so good.
this is a good guy. He felt bad about killing the whales, but he still did it.
Yeah. He still
Um,
stabbed them with his harpoon.
at risk of making this even more gruesome than it already is, what was like? What kind of head was it?
They
In,
just said a head that he got from New Zealand.
he said embalm. Like what?
Yeah, like embalmed, like preserved and I
Ooh.
don't know, shrunken. I don't know if they're shrunken. I guess they shrink a little bit in the embalming process, but I don't think we're talking like voodoo doll stuff. They really didn't go into much detail, though. I think it was just supposed to be like a shock thing for someone reading it in 1850, being like, "Ah, no,
Well,
what is this?"
as a half Pakeha, half Palangi man, I sincerely hope it was a Pakeha head. That would be a whole lot nicer. It does remind me of the New
Maybe it's
Zealand.
Captain Cook's head.
Ooh, that would be nice.
That's what they found.
Um,
Picked him up in Tahiti.
it does remind me of the New Zealand mention in The Sopranos when it's like they're at a deli, and then the exotic coffee, like there's a sign behind the counter, and the exotic coffee is from New Zealand. I was like, I appreciate the New Zealand mention. Any New Zealand mention is fantastic. The same with any cricketing mention in a hip hop song. So do want to shout out Urban Pacifica, which was I heard it on heard the song on BFM, Best Radio Station New Zealand. Their song One, and I think there is it's from 1999, and there is pretty sure there's Dehamo in it. So shout out to Dehamo. And it was a cricket mention. Upping the run rate, 2 MCs at the crease, and then a couple bars later, there's the old Ray Sefo coming up, kicking like Ray Sefo. So we've already talked about cricketing hip hop bars, but we got run one right here in Aotearoa via Urban Pacifica. So do shout that out. You can just search up Urban Pacifica 1 and have a little jam of that. So I'm always tapped into any mention of New Zealand and some of these I wouldn't say pop culture, but some of the things we read and listen to and watch. But I'm always looking out for a little cricket reference, especially in hip hop as well. It's just a perfect match. And yeah, I did celebrate when I saw New Zealand mentioned on The Sopranos, but I was like, oh, we don't really do exotic coffee here, we're not doing the Java in Aotearoa. We actually,
Yeah, come to think of it, it's not really the best or the most indicative idea, I guess. My favorite one, I'll say two because they're kind of the same thing.
We can.
And
I don't want to kill your buzz, but we can save it for another podcast. Like we can keep dropping the seeds, but just give me a quick one.
well, there's always more where these came from,
Yeah.
but in the film Point Break, the Patrick Swayze character, I think it's him. It keeps telling Keanu Reeves about how he wants to his his end goal is to go to New Zealand and sail surf the waves there or something like that. It's like his sort of like the dream that you kind of know he's never going to get to. And in the film Heat, Robert De Niro says the same thing. He's ready to go at any moment. If the Heat come around the corner, he can never get attached to anything. You can't drop in 30 seconds. And his escape plan is he's going to duck off to New Zealand and live anonymously there, which of course, again, that movie being what it is, he's never going to get there. But it's nice to dream.
Good. Like we don't want them here. New Zealand
Yeah,
sucks.
we don't need these people.
Do not come to New Zealand. It's a terrible country. Just horrible. Like we're out here living in tough times. It sucks in New Zealand. Do not come here. But shout out to you listening. And upon reflection, I was interested in your rather positive assessment of Sean Marks, and I quickly want to touch base on this because like all my NBA research over the past week has suggested that Sean Marks is kind of shit at his job. That he doesn't do the greatest moves. Everyone's confused by Sean Marks' decisions. But I did enjoy your passionate, positive tone when discussing Sean Marks. Although I will remind folks, you said Stephen Adams was better at his job than Sean Marks. So it's not like you were saying Sean Marks is legendary. But my question, quick, hard and fast question, who's a better GM? Nico Harrison of your Dallas Mavericks or Sean Marks with the Brooklyn Nets?
See, the instinctive thing is obviously Sean Marks because I have the Kiwi bias and I have the sort of like anti-Luka Doncic trade bias going on there as well. But the weird thing about Nico Harrison is that he seems like a bit of a dick. Like he does seem like he carries himself quite arrogantly, and some of the decision-making stuff doesn't really feel like he's sounded out enough other people's opinions or caring about the fans enough, and a lot of this. But the weird thing is, in the time that he's been there, like the 2 or 3 years, he's actually kind of made really good move after really good move after really good move, followed by the worst trade in the history of the NBA, followed by some really good moves. He fluked it into the #1 overall pick, but he's actually, like, in a weird way, if it wasn't for the Doncic trade, I think he'd actually be looked at as a really good GM, but because of that, people are only ever going to think of him as a bad GM, but he's actually, like, he's done a lot of good work outside of an absolutely egregious, no one's ever made a trade this stupid before in history kind of thing. It's not just the deciding to trade Doncic, because he's not wrong when he says Doncic can't defend. It's the like, let's only talk to one team. Let's not even get anywhere near like the package we could have gotten. And you compare that to how like the Houston Rockets managed to finesse their way into Kevin Durant. It's like that's how that job's supposed to be done. But the weird thing about Nico Harrison, he hasn't really got too many other moves that have been swings and misses like that, whereas Marks has a few, but not that many. Like, it's kind of just the way he overrode himself by deciding to go into the Durant Irving era. But that's why I'm more positive than others. I think other people have just looked at it and they're just looking at the swings and the ups and downs and stuff and being like, well, this is very inconsistent. This guy's all over the place. Whereas I sort of see it distinctly in 3 different phases. There's the first phase building up, then there's the bad phase, and then there's the current phase, which feels a lot more like the first phase, which he was quite good at. And people liked the kind of subtle, clever moves he was making at that time before everything got shaken up. So, I think
That's
Nico Harrison probably is the better GM, but it's not the popular thing to say. And I also think Sean Marks is doing better than people think, but it's not the popular thing to say. But I don't also know if that means the Nets will be any good. I suspect they're not going to be any good this year because they're just going to be relying on a bunch of rookies and unproven players. But whether he can get them out of that remains to be seen. But I do prefer him in this mode.
I again, you've laid out that positive tinge. You got the old the positive goggles on. I liked your little 3 stages, but I'll double down on the idea that this third stage for Sean Marks and Brooklyn Nets, given his recent activities, everyone around the NBA is making fun of him.
It's true. And he
So,
probably deserves a bit of that because of
well,
how
we'll
he
just wait and
undermined
see.
himself. But yeah, that's the thing. We'll wait and see because he's the only GM who's ever made 5 first-round picks in the same draft before. But the thing about draft picks is, and this is something I feel like I see reminded every single year, is no one knows anywhere. It's not that no one knows anything about draft picks. It's no one knows anywhere near as much as they think they know about draft picks. So you don't know which players are going to be good and which aren't and whatever. You never there's no guarantees with any of that stuff. So we shall see.
There's no guarantees about the future of New Zealand basketball, but I mean, we got the 4th best under-19 team in the whole wide world because Aotearoa is the best sporting nation in the whole wide world. They lost to Serbia, Slovenia.
They lost to both of them during the tournament, but yeah,
But who the bronze
Slovenia
medal?
was the 3rd place playoff.
Yeah. So they didn't get a medal at the World Cup, where world champion basketball teams are awarded, where basketball teams become world champions in World Cups, not the NBA. So it's a fantastic representation of Aotearoa basketball at the same time where we've got 2 Kiwis in the Summer League, Sam Menenga, and or was it just him?
There's 3.
3.
Sam Menenga is at the Lakers. Tyrell Harrison got a late call up. Well, not late. It was just later to be announced, but it was forecast for a while ahead of that with the Denver Nuggets. So auditioning to be Nikola Jokic's backup, I guess. And Aniwa Tate Jones is with Toronto Raptors. The Lakers are already in action, but the other 2 teams play there's like a couple of different summer league tournaments. So the other 2 start in a few days or next week or something.
So we've got the 4th best under-19 team in the world, and we've also got 3 dudes playing in the Summer League, and of course we've got Steven Adams in the NBA, and Sean Marks doing his thing as an NBA GM. In our newsletter, you had the New Zealand under-19 stat chart. 2 dudes played more than 200 minutes in the tournament, Tama Isaac, Hayden Jones. And then we've got Jackson Ball, 191 minutes, Carter Hopoi, 146, Julius Halai-Whanua, 135, Lachlan Crate, 135, then Oscar Goodman, 134 minutes. They were the main dudes involved for the New Zealand under-19s. Is there anything, you got any fresh ideas about the team? I think we've kind of covered it from all angles. Of course, there were some results recently, but do you have like kind of any fresh debriefy ideas from the tournament for the New Zealanders?
Well, they could have won that Serbia game. They led for a bit in the first quarter. They then trailed for pretty much the whole rest of the game, but they had a few different runs where they got close. Unfortunately, Slovenia shot 50% from 3-point range, so it's a bit like the if you're going to give the defending champion Roosters women like 55+% possession, you're probably going to lose. If you're going to let a team shoot 50% from threes against you, if you make 4 3-pointers in the entire game yourself, and they make 11, and you lose by like 6 points, it's not the only thing, but it's a pretty clear difference between the teams. And the annoying thing about that is it was one of those ones where, like, if they're shooting 50%, there's always a situation where, like, you probably could have defended that a bit better. You could have slowed down the ball movement. You could have got closer with your closeouts, whatever. But there's also an element of luck. Like, on a different day, 2 of those shots might not go down, and maybe one of Jackson Ball's extra ones does or something, and then suddenly that's the game flipped in the other direction. So And especially the way the Kiwis really hunted it down late on, made it as close as they possibly could in the last couple of minutes. Tama Isaac banked a three. They made their free throws. Like they played with yeah, plenty of heart and plenty of determination and all this stuff and belief the whole way through. They always had that belief. Maybe a little bit it dipped against USA, for obvious reasons, because America would like streets ahead of everyone else. But so it goes. Like that was something that you saw top to bottom from the roster. Like there's a few guys in the squad, like Kahurangi Treacher, Will Blight, they didn't play a lot of minutes, but when they came in, you still like you could see like these are guys, they know what their job is, they're going to play hard for a few minutes, spell the other guys, give them a little breather, whatever. Or maybe it's maybe they're getting time and like a little bit of garbage time against USA or something like that. Still going to play hard, still going to go out there and try to prove, like, show what they can do to the best of their abilities, kind of thing. Like, it's just there was an attitude that was always there, whether it was from the top players on the roster or the bottom players on the roster, which I think is incredible to see. A reflection of great coaching as well from Matt Lacey, but also a reflection of the talent and how deep the roster goes. And I mean, there's some pretty good players that didn't even make this dozen for the squad. So like, that stuff is all amazing. I was struck by the final buzzer against Slovenia, who Slovenia have won Eurobasket within the last 10 years. That's like the senior event. They won it. It was with a young Luka Doncic. They have Luka Doncic for starters. Like they've qualified for Olympics. I think they did similar at the under 18 European Championships, whatever it was last year. Like they made the semifinals there as well. Did very well. So this is a pretty, like it's a small country, but basketball is big in Slovenia. It has access to a lot of that Eastern European basketball stuff. We've seen how like the quality of players that are coming out of that part of the world. That's a pretty established basketball nation. Their coach was bawling his eyes out at the final buzzer. Like he was in tears. He was crying at the achievement of them finishing third. They only just beat New Zealand. And so we're out there feeling disappointed. I'm thinking, well, this is like, what a place to be in, where Slovenians are crying with joy at having been able to beat a New Zealand team, and the New Zealanders are disappointed that they couldn't beat the Slovenians. Like, on another day, we might well have won that and gotten those bronze medals. I mean, Oscar Goodman got injured in the first quarter, so he barely even played in that last game. He would have made a big difference. Just his strength and his style of play, I think, would have been, and his defense would have been pretty handy in that matchup there. And like, to be able to feel disappointed coming away from a game like that, like what a privilege and achievement that is in itself. Like to be able to feel that disappointment tells you that, like, it tells you how far I was going to say this team, but how far the sport has come in this country and how good those players are and how far they have yet to go in their careers, that this is where they're like, this is the springboard that they're launching from. It's a crazy talented group, and yeah, absolutely stacked. And just I mean, a year ago, the Tall Blacks of 2002 were the only New Zealand team to ever make the semi-finals of the FIBA event. We've done it twice in 2 years now. Under 17s last year, under 19s this year, both at their World Cups, and there were 5 players who were in both of those teams.
Let's take a moment of silence. Not an RIP moment of silence, but just a moment of gratitude, a moment to spark one up and just ponder Aotearoa's sporting greatness. Back in Aotearoa, we have NBL finals. Canterbury Rams and Wellington Saints are straight through to like a semi-final. Wellington finished top of the table, so they overtook Canterbury Rams. Canterbury Rams, without Taylor Britt, suffered a few defeats, dropped down to second, which means Wednesday night, Taranaki versus Tauranga in Taranaki, New Plymouth, I imagine. Then we got Southland Sharks versus Auckland Tuatara. That will be in Invercargill. So those are Like, no disrespect to the Tauranga Auckland crowds, but I imagine it's going to be pretty ruckus in New Plymouth and Invercargill for those two NBL finals games. The Southland Tuatara game is Thursday night. So Wednesday night, Taranaki versus Tauranga. Thursday night, Southland versus Auckland. And then on the weekend, I think we have Canterbury versus a winner, and then Wellington versus a winner. Canterbury at home, Wellington at home. How are you feeling about this finals run in NBL basketball?
Yeah, it's nicely set up. Especially because we've got that extra little element where the two-time defending champs aren't actually necessarily coming in as favorites now into this final series because they did just get beaten by the Saints, and Taylor Britt will come back and that'll make a big difference. But like that Saints team is pretty stacked and also extremely well coached by Aaron Young, and I think that's an element of why. Because I was looking at the ramifications over the weekend and like because it kept changing with different results and kept still thinking, well, a lot of people seem to still think Manawatu would sneak in over the last couple of weeks because they probably only needed one or two extra wins, but it was like that team just didn't look nearly the same when Corey Webster wasn't there. And then Dante Russo-Nance missed the last game. So I think the only game Webster played over the last like 2 months was the win against Canterbury. And that was their only win in that spell. They lost 6 of their last 7 games to fall out. But like, if Webster's injured and Russo-Nance is injured, I don't really like respect to Manawatu, a good team. They don't really want you in the finals if your two best Kiwi players aren't going to be available. Let's spread that around. So I was hoping Franklin might sneak in because I just had a lot of fun watching the Cameron brothers playing for that team together when they were both fit and available. I saw that on the weekend, but they couldn't quite get over. I think that was the Rams, wasn't it? That was the game where the Rams went and pipped them and knocked the Bulls out, which allowed Auckland to squeeze it. And I was thinking about like the drop off from the Auckland Tuatara, and I think from like the last couple of seasons to this season, I think the biggest difference is like obviously there's plenty of player coming and going stuff there, but I think the biggest difference is that Aaron Young is now coaching Wellington, and sort of first time head coach Cam Glidden is in charge of Auckland, and he'll probably be a very good coach, but he's not what Aaron Young is right now. And I think that's a difference that we've seen. But yeah, that Saints team is a lot of fun. That Rams team is a lot of fun. And they do feel like the two teams that are like separated themselves away from the crowd. But like Southland and Taranaki are both capable of beating anyone. And I think they probably both win their sort of, I don't know what they're called, quarterfinals, elimination finals, whatever they are. But especially because there's just this big sort of log jam between the teams for the last couple spots, right? I think there might have been a slight dip off in there, whereas like Southland have come in very strong, especially since Sam Timmins turned up there. He's been awesome for them. Jack Andrew and Carla Davison have been awesome for Taranaki all season. So it sets up I think you've sort of got like 3 tiers with the first and second, third and fourth, fifth and sixth with how the finals thing has kind of been set up. But the good thing about this competition and the fact that these aren't NBA best of 7 series, this is just one-off games. You win it on the day, and that does leave a very big opportunity for like upsets to happen, which we usually get 1 or 2 of those each season when we get to this stage. So it's going to be good. It's been a very good season leading us up to this point, with the exception of the Indian Panthers, but we'll leave them buried. The final series should be no different. Like these are some good matchups and these are some good teams.
And a quick word, Sam Menenga in the Summer League. I saw him. I think the first highlight from your clip was him dribbling the ball and then setting a screen, which was pretty crazy. And then a couple little dives into the basket for some jam. What have you made of his mahi in the Summer League with the Lakers? Could he partner LeBron James? Wow.
Well, he played alongside one LeBron James, just it was the other one, little Bronny. He's playing Summer League this season, so Sam Menenga is hanging out with him. Yeah, like there he had an assist. He had a couple of buckets in their second game. He didn't play their first game. Their second game, they had a big win over Miami. So they allowed the roster to stretch out a little bit there. He played the entire fourth quarter, which probably playing the entire fourth quarter alongside other guys who weren't necessarily in the main rotation. But he got about 4 minutes in the first half as well, and he got a little bit in the third quarter. So um, certainly that was a game where he got maybe more than he expected because of the nature of the game, but also he was obviously in line to get some minutes there. They're giving him opportunity, and there's three little highlights there I managed to find where it was like creating a bit of offense from the top of the key there. So nice stuff from Sam Menenga hanging out there with the Lakers, and he's still under contract with the Breakers, so don't like most players who play summer league don't end up getting signed by NBA teams. It's an opportunity. It's a bit of networking. It's see what you can do. It's certainly a bit of professional development, but he had a really good time of it as well playing in the Puerto Rico League during the NBL offseason. He was a bit of a star player there as well. So he's been doing a lot of stuff since we last saw him play for the Breakers, and he is under contract to return for the Breakers for next season as well. We'll see if he's in the Tall Blacks Asia Cup squad for September or whenever that is as well, because that's a possibility too. He's clearly someone who's keeping himself busy, and I think someone who is potentially in line for a big season, because we got flashes of that, especially at the start of last year, where it felt like that was coming then. Then they went and signed Taco Fall, and it really messed up Sam Menenga's role, and I think he was quite inconsistent most of the rest of the way. Finished strong, and he's been doing a lot of work in the off season to build off of that and to have a bigger, more consistent season, more dominant season this time around.
It will be interesting to see if there's any under-19 lads who come back to NBL finals, and one of them might be Tama Isaac, playing alongside Kaya Isaac for Canterbury. That's the only non-rugby league whānau connection that I could think of that was similar to what I saw over the weekend. Is there any, you got any, because there was the, so the Knights lost to the Bulldogs in NRLW, and we had Tiana Davison playing for the Knights as a starting prop. She played 47 minutes, and at the same time, Friday night, Carlin Davison, brother of Tiana Davison, from the Taranaki, he played 31 minutes for the Taranaki Airs. Also on that Knights team was Tanika Willison, who played the full game at left centre. Pretty impressive in a losing effort. And her Knights lost to the Bulldogs, but Xavier Willison, her cousin from the Waikato, he was massive for the Broncos in their win over the Bulldogs. So are there any kind of whānau connections across your basketball and footballing beat that are similar to those?
I mean, Hayden Jones was in that under-19 World Cup team, son of Phil Jones, but also more pertinent at the moment, brother of Maya Jones, who is a training player with the Tall Ferns coming up for the Asia Cup. Like one injury and she might be in line for a national team debut there. Not to mention younger sister Ava Jones, who was dominating at the high school national tournament, I think it was recently, or it might have been the South Island tournament, whatever it was. She's another incredibly good prospect. So that's a family which maybe not quite all at the top level immediately, like the ones you're mentioning there, but give it a year or two. That's only a matter of time. Something like that.
And of course, the Bulldogs, they had Shaquela Mahakitao Monshel playing alongside her auntie, Shanice Monshel.
That's even better.
That is
cross-generational.
In the same team. So that was a Bulldogs team in NRLW who had, I think, 8 wahine from Aotearoa. They had let me go through them all because it's pretty important. All 5 try scorers were from Aotearoa as well. and that included Moana Courtenay, who was the first Bulldogs NRLW try scorer. She's moved from rugby union. I think she was North Harbour rep. She played for Tonga in rugby union, and I think she came out of North Shore Rugby Club. So she scored 2 tries as the right centre, lining up against Willison. And there were 2 tries also for Ash Quinlan, Kiwi Ferns rep from Turangi, and Angelina Tiakaranga Katoa, who was a Kiwi Ferns prop, who I think is from Auckland but moved to Australia at some point. So the 2 starting centres for the Bulldogs, Samina Lokatui Mangere East Jr. and Courtenay, both of them I think are going to represent Tonga. So that's a nice little addition to Tonga's depth. Courtenay is already representing Tonga in rugby union, and this is important because the Kiwi Ferns have a lot of centre depth, as we'll roll out through this chit-chat. So I think there's an opportunity for Lokatui and Courtenay to play for Tonga. Ash Quinlan in the halves, Tiakaranga Katoa prop. Shaquela Mahakita Monshel was actually starting hooker. And I think she's like 19 years old, so that was a decent effort for her as starting hooker. Alexis Tauiniai was on the edge. Wainui Amata Jr., still only 20 years old or something crazy. She moved to the middle when Shannon Muru came on Mount Albert Jr., and Shanice Monshal was playing through the middle as a Mount Albert player coming out of Auckland. So it was very impressive effort from the Bulldogs in their first NRLW game. There's a bit of a bummer for the Knights. They've got a lot of Aotearoa flavour in there, but they couldn't match the Bulldogs, so that was a bit stink for them. And we know the Bulldogs don't have a lot of NRL juice from Aotearoa in their team, but the Broncos, who defeated the Bulldogs in a funky old game that was, they were full of Aotearoa flavour, which means both Broncos teams are heavy-duty Aotearoa. The Broncos men's team had Josiah Karapani, Deluise Hoita and Dean Mariner, both of whom are Maris juniors from Auckland, Xavier Willison and Jordan Rickey. Broncos Wahine, who had a win over the Tigers, they had Kerry Johnson from Kaikoi, Melehufunga, Gail Broughton, Brianna Clark and Tafito Lafayette in their team. And that's the thing about the Broncos. It's like no matter how many players from Aotearoa they have in their teams, they're always really good. And they develop, first of all, they recruit very powerful, very skillful. Like they only deal in the upper echelons of Aotearoa talent, to be honest. And so when that talent rises through to the NRL level, they're always going to do something impressive and funky. Some other NRL wahine notes. Abigail Roach was very good at centre for the Cowboys in their win over Georgia Hale's Titans team. But the player I was really watching for with the Cowboys was Rosie Kelly from Hokitika, who was in the halves for the Cowboys. She played her first season after moving from the Black Ferns Rugby Union at centre for the Eels. Then she moves up to the Cowboys and she's in the halves. Now that's interesting because Cowboys coach is Ricky Henry, who's also the Kiwi Ferns coach. And the Kiwi Ferns, if they are to consistently compete with Australia, win every couple of games, be in a crack of a win every single game, they need halves depth. So now we have Ash Quinlan, Gail Broughton, Rosie Kelly, and Tyler King is in the mix as well. She didn't play round one for the Sharks. Plus, we had Temple Kalepo making his debut for the Cowboys men's team. So he came off the bench and played mainly at hooker. Temple Kalepo, he has been a very impressive Kiwi NRL junior for a long time. Coming out of King's College, LSE junior, first 15 he played midfield and wing, and he was a hooker in the Warriors system for a while. So 2 years before the pandemic, he was playing Jersey Flegg. I think he played Jersey Flegg and New South Wales Cup while he was still at school. Then the pandemic hits. He was on the bench for the New South Wales Cup Warriors Round 1 2020. What a time to be alive. And the starting hooker for the Warriors in that game was Sean Mullaney. Lots of weird crossover here, so I need to try keep it on track. But so Sean Mullaney made his debut this year as well. So the starting hooker for the Warriors Round 1 2020 New South Wales Cup was Sean Mullaney. On the bench was Temple Kalepo. Now Sean Mullaney's made his debut for the Titans in 2025. Temple Kalepo's made his debut for the Cowboys in 2025. But it gets even funkier because Sean Mullaney left the Warriors and went into the Cowboys system, where he played a lot of footy for the Mackay Cutters. Then he moves to the Titans system ahead of this season. So there's a spot open in the Mackay Cutters Queensland Cup team and in the Cowboys system. So Kalepo gets that opportunity as a train and trial player for the Cowboys and as a hooker middle forward for Mackay Cutters. So there's a lot of crossover there with Sean Mullaney, not only with the Warriors, but also now with Mackay Cutters. And it gets even funkier because Kalepo was coming through the Warriors system. Him and Taniela Otakulo were part of the Warriors kind of Redcliffe wave, which they were actually victims of that. They played for the Redcliffe Warriors, but then they left the Warriors organization during that period. Kalepo went down to the Knights and Otakulo debuted in the NRL, and then he had a couple years out, but now Otakulo has popped up with the Bulldogs. He is playing as a hooker, but mainly as a middle forward, mainly as a small forward for the Bulldogs. And Kalepo has played a few games as a middle forward for Mackay in Queensland Cup. So the two best emerging dummy halves for the Warriors in that pandemic era are both, even Sean Mullaney. Sean Mullaney gets game time in Queensland Cup as a small forward. So that paints a picture of how important the small forward hooker is in the NRL right now. You can go like Saliva Havili, Manurewa Jr. What does he do? Hooker, small forward. Brandon Smith came back to footy with the Rabbitohs, got injured again, but he was playing mainly as a small forward, as a middle forward. So this is a position that a lot of NRL teams are investing in, and it's just funny how all the paths have crossed as far as their journey goes, not only in terms of the teams they're playing for, but also the roles they are playing for. And Kalepo pounced on his opportunity. I don't know what's going to happen in the future because, again, it gets super complicated because he was with the Knights. So he left the Redcliffe Warriors to play for the Knights in New South Wales Cup. Couldn't progress through the Knights as a dummy half because they had Jaden Brayley, Phoenix Crossland. I think they've signed someone else for next season off the top of my head. But Reece Robson is the hooker for the Cowboys. Now he's moving to the Roosters. But Reid Mahoney's going to the... Sorry, excuse me, I'm a New Zealander. Reid Mahoney, he is going to the Cowboys next season. So it gets even... It just keeps getting complicated. Reece Robson's going to the Roosters, where Brandon Smith just left the Roosters. And they have Benai Iowelu, who is from Tangaroa College, Aotearoa Jr., Howick Jr., Mount Albert Jr. So he's another emerging Kiwi NRL half. And it's like all these players have opportunities, but they're kind of a few tiers below where all these teams are recruiting hookers above them pretty much as a good settling point. Sean Mullaney, he's behind Chris Randall, Sam Verrills at the Titans. Kalepo might have an opportunity because Reece Robson's departing, but now they're signing Reid Mahoney. Benai Iowelu just got an opportunity because the Roosters shuffled Brandon Smith out, but now they're recruiting Reece Robson. Whew. It's just weird how all those Kiwi NRL tentacles cross over, but ultimately Temple Kalepo, a very powerful dummy half who does have that small forward potential. I don't think Aotearoa is going to progress with the Bulldogs as a hooker, though, is another thing. So they'll shuffle Reid Mahoney out, but I think Aotearoa, if he does progress, it will be in that small forward position. Temple Kalepo did play for the Junior Kiwis in 2019, but he's also played for Tonga A in that 2023 game against New Zealand A, and I predict Temple Kalepo will be a dummy half for Tonga moving forward with Havili. So that means Tonga has a young dummy half in Kalepo, and Samoa has a young dummy half in Benai Iowelu. New Zealand Kiwis, don't worry about them. They're all good. Jeremy Marshall-King, Phoenix Crossland, and maybe Brandon Smith if he does get healthy, because that would be nice, to be honest. Your Dragons. Pretty interesting game against the Raiders. I did notice one thing, though.
How fast Kyle Weeks is?
He's pretty damn quick. Matthew Tomoka was awesome in that game. Like, he did his job as well, but the one and only, the best player from Aotearoa right now, Joseph Tapine. He played a season low 29 minutes. It was his first game below 40 minutes. And he came off after 25 minutes. He only came back on because the game was close. And this is my point here, is that I think the Raiders were taking the piss of it with the Dragons. So you didn't get the full Joseph Tapine experience because I think Ricky Stewart was just managing his workload, gets him off the field, Raiders are cooking, stay off the field. He only comes back on to play 6 minutes at the end because the game's close. So
well, he did get injured a little bit. It was ridiculous because it was Jaden Sewer like tackled him, and Tapane's leg got caught between his legs, and they penalized him for a hip drop or something stupid. It wasn't anything like that. Couldn't catch a break with their NRL refs in the first half. You know, the Dragons there was the standard thing that every fan says about their team. But I don't think. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think Tapine was. I mean, the fact he came back in the game later on suggests he wasn't badly hurt. They were just like, don't really need to take any risks or be silly with this.
I don't think he was. Nah, come off the field. We'll just give you a break. It was like, okay, you got a little injury, come off the field. Okay, we're cruising, stay off the field. Okay, the game's getting a bit close, get back on the field.
Yeah, which is at least the Dragons made it close at the end. That was actually a good game. I was pretty happy with how the Dragons performed, considering they were missing like half their team through injuries and one Origin call-up. The one Origin call-up and then a bunch of injuries around that was against that Raiders team. I thought that could get ugly. And then there were even at times during the game that looked like that might get ugly, but it didn't. So that was all right. Managed to force Joey Tapine back on the field. So that's a moral victory.
Yeah, good effort. Well done. Xavier Willison, so he turned out big numbers, but also Nofahu White in the loss to the Tigers. So Willison, 20 runs for 205 meters, averaging 10.2 runs, 43 tackles, 68 minutes. Nofahu White, 73 minutes, 22 runs, 250 meters, 11.3 meters per run, 45 tackles. Griffin Neame wasn't at that level, but it was a pretty impressive game from Griffin Neame. 58 minutes, 9 runs for 117 meters, 13 meters per run, 44 tackles. Those are 3 of the young middle forwards for Aotearoa, who had monster games this weekend, as well as a few sneaky Storm players. Joe Chan is a contender for the Kiwis moving forward, assuming he still wants to represent Aotearoa because he was part of that New Zealand A setup in 2023. He popped up at centre, which was decent effort from him. I've mainly seen him play middle forward, a bit of edge forward. Alec MacDonald started his first game of the season. Season high for minutes, run meters, and tackles. And he also didn't miss a tackle. Now, you got to be careful. Like, it's not 100% tackle efficiency, because sometimes the efficiency stat drops with an ineffective tackle. So there's a tackle, there's a missed tackle, there's an ineffective tackle. Who knows what the frick that means, but that's just how the stats are mapped out. But Alec MacDonald, my favourite sneaky New Zealand Kiwis could possibly play for Aotearoa contender. He does not have an official missed tackle in 7 of his 12 games this year. That's all he does. He's really fast for a middle forward, and he doesn't miss tackles. He is the Storm player. I've said it before, I'll say it again. He is the mahi man for the Storm, where it just hits a bit different. Like, if you're doing all the gritty work for the Storm, woo-wee. And there's also Ativalu Lasati, who is a Glenora junior, and he snuck under my radar, my Kiwi NRL radar, but he has played his 3rd game for the Storm as a middle forward. 33 minutes off the bench was pretty impressive for him as well. I think he had a couple years in the Panthers system after leaving Auckland, and then he's popped up with the Stormers. And a few details for the Warriors wahine, because I do think Patricia Maliepo was awesome. She's got fantastic kicking game, but she also loves to run the footy. And she doesn't just like run the footy with spark, she runs it straight. And so I think she's going to be a very impressive player moving forward for the Warriors at number 6. And I also think, I might need to just Google this while I'm talking my jibber jabber, I think she spent time with Southern Cross campus. And that is one of the undercover most impressive rugby league schools in the world. They don't have back-to-back New Zealand championships like St. Thomas of Canterbury, but Patricia Maliepo has been a rugby union prodigy for a while, coming out of Southern Cross campus. Shout out to Edgewater College as well. But she was a prefect at Southern Cross campus, who also gave us Mele Hofunga, who also gave us Leka Halasima, who also gave us Elijah Salisa Lea Moana. So like a little school in Mangere East has produced 2 really good NRLW players and 2 really good emerging NRL players as well. So shout out to Southern Cross campus in Mangere. The funky thing for the Warriors moving forward, because they were far more dynamic when Tuiloma Quedley shifted into the halves. Now our cult hero Emily Curtin, she was alright at halfback, but I just thought the Warriors looked more, they had more spark, more zip when Tuiloma Quedley was in the halves. So she came off the bench to play hooker, but then Curtin came off the field and Tuiloma Quedley went into the halves with Capri Paikau at hooker, and she's just more lively in the halves. And I'm curious to see what happens there, because I think it's I just prefer my halves with a bit of zip, you know what I'm saying? Like Maliepo, she's a big body, she runs straight, she runs hard, she's got a fantastic passing kicking game. And if you add in the zip and spark of Tuiloma Quedley, I think that's a very dynamic halves combination, especially when you got Capri Paikau at hooker. She loves to run the footy. RP Nichols is a classy runner as well. The only issue is that backup dummy half position. So I still, maybe it's best to go with Tuiloma Quedley on the bench, and that gives you a few options. Taisha Ikanasio was really good at right centre. Lots of mahi for her. And there was like a little, seems important, there was an 18-year-old on the bench. Ashley Matapo. Big, powerful middle forward. She only had 1 run for 10 metres, but I mean, you're averaging 10 metres per run right there, so shout out. And also 16 tackles without a missed tackle. She's 18 years old playing NRLW, you know, you're like, that seems notable, that seems relevant, that seems important to me. And it'll be interesting to see if she keeps her spot on the bench if they do get a few players back. As I said at the start of the podcast, there's just a lot of speed and power in this team. There's enough big boppers, like Harata Butler is a fantastic leader as a middle forward. Lyshawn Albert-Jones did her job nicely. But if you give Michaela Brake, Ikanasio, Api Nichols, Tuiloma Quedley, Maliepo, if you give them time in this role, Shakira Baker playing edge forward as well. If you give them time at this level, I think they're going to play very good rugby league. And there was also a notable difference in their dummy half mahi to the men Warriors. The men Warriors, the outside backs don't really get in at dummy half. They might do 1 run, 2 runs maybe, but you don't have the variety of dummy half runners that the Raiders might have. Let me see. Okay, Raiders versus Dragons. On the fly. Might be wrong. 1, 2, 3, 7 dummy half runners. Including the 2 hookers. The Warriors wahine, Ikanasio had 5 dummy half runs. Michaela Brake had 6. 2 for Maliepo, 1 for Emily Curtin, and then Paikau had 6, Tuiloma Quedley had 3. The Warriors usually just rely on Wade Egan getting out of dummy half. Personally, I prefer your outside backs getting in from dummy half. But the Warriors men, what do the outside backs do? They get a pass from the ruck. That's how they do their running. So I think that's a good thing for the Warriors women. It's just having those powerful, like Michaela Brake, she's lively. Ikanasio, hearty efforts, very busy. I want them getting into dummy half. Even Maliepo in the halves, she was busy out of hooker as well. I think that's something that they can build upon moving forward. As for the Warriors men, recording this Tuesday morning ahead of Teamless Tuesday, I want my spine to be Taine Tuapiki, Chanel Harris-Tavita, Tana Boyd, Wade Egan, Tamaira Martin on the bench. I think that's my best spine. I don't see any reason to select Tamaira Martin at fullback ahead of Taine Tuapiki. I don't know why you do that. Taine Tuapiki is really good. And I think Tamaira Martin on the bench, he can still do the versatility thing. The only issue is then you're selecting Tana Boyd ahead of Tamaira Martin in the halves, which I don't know if Andrew Webster's going to do. He likes to have an order to things. So I think he might reward Tamaira Martin for his efforts over a longer period of time. But then I'd rather have Sam Healy on the bench than Tana Boyd. I think Sam Healy is a better hooker than Tana Boyd. Sam Healy is a better middle forward option, small forward option than Tana Boyd. But Tamaira Martin is a better all-round utility than Sam Healy. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about with the team selections for the Warriors ahead of their game against the Tigers. Tigers had a very impressive win against the Roosters. I'm not sure if Stafford Toa will be selected because he was playing busted, but the funky thing about the Tigers, and it will, hopefully he does play because he's from Auckland, so it'll be a good thing for him. Matt Wellington Jr. went to St. Paul's College. I want him to play because it's one of those, I'm not sure, like a NFL football, NBA type of thing where you just see how a team uses a player differently. It's like, okay, we got this really exciting attacking winger in our football team. We need to get him the ball in as many situations as we can. That's what Benji Marshall's been doing with Starford Toa. Like, he's just popping up everywhere. And they have a lot of little set plays for Starford Toa. And I think that's because they understand he's awesome at rugby league. And whenever he's available, he's starting centre. And they build a lot of attacking structures around Starford Toa. So I want to see him play in Auckland. And I'll say it again, like, I've just been a little bit underwhelmed by Rocco Berry this season. And I just have this vision. I think we might have discussed it maybe in 2023. Rocco Berry used to tackle people around the legs, and it looked like he had glue on his hands. Now it looks like he's got the old butterfingers, because he just slips right off those legs tackles. So my vision that I go to sleep with about Rocco Berry, it used to be him making excellent legs tackles. Now it is him slipping off legs tackles. And it's a little bit worrying that he doesn't stack up back-to-back games at the NRL or New South Wales Cup level. Whenever he's selected in the NRL, he's just coming back from an injury. It's not like, yeah, play a couple New South Wales Cup games and build into it. And I've just been a little bit underwhelmed by him this season. So I'm curious if he's selected, how he performs, and what happens there. Because you've also got Ali Leotawa, he's out injured. A little bit underwhelming for him as well. Adam Pompey's more reliable. But the Warriors, even with Moala Graham Taufa moving to the Rabbitohs next season, there's a lot of centre depth. Off the top of my head, you got the legend Morgan Harper. That was a little bit of a joke. Your centre depth, like Sio Kelly's best position is centre. Kalis Putoko came in and played centre in New South Wales Cup. Brandon Norris has been excellent on the wing for the under-21s, but he's also been excellent at centre for the under-21s. Patrick Moimoi, Tafu Vake, they've all been really good at centre. And we've already seen a very good centre/winger, Compton Purcell, move to the Panthers. So centre is a position where the Warriors have a lot of depth in their system. And at some point, I think that depth is going to start sweeping over players who don't perform. And I am worried that might be Rocco Berry. But that's just me going to sleep with visions of Rocco Berry sliding off the legs tackles.
Well, so it's better than some of the Game of Thrones visions you could have been falling asleep to otherwise.
Yeah, old Catelyn Stark coming back from the dead.
Is that the Lady Stoneheart?
Yeah.
They didn't put that in the show.
Or mangled. Or the, I don't know. I can't remember all the names, but who was the other? Let me just double check. So the other centre, it was Putoko and Tafu Vake were the centres in under-21s this week. And that was made possible because the main man, Joseph Ratcliffe, was at fullback. And I still think, so we've got like the Jason Salalilos, the Toby Crosbys, Makai Tafuas, Jacob Auloas. They're all rising up the system. Is Jack Thompson better than Jet Cleary? Maybe. These are all some undercover Warriors system observations. All of them are pretty, like, this next observation isn't more undercover, more impressive than the others, but Warriors fans need to get a little bit excited about Joseph Ratcliffe. He's a very good fullback. He's more taintua picky than Shans Nickel-Krokstad, and he is just a pure rugby league fullback talent. But also Jack Thompson's might be better than Jack Cleary. Right, let's get into a bit of footballing movement. You've been doing your football insider thing, scouring Italian websites, New Zealand websites, because Logan Rogerson's re-signed with the Wellington Phoenix. Whoa.
Hey, yeah.
Logan Rogerson,
who scores hat-tricks against the Wellington Phoenix.
From Ngaruawahia. He has re-signed with Auckland FC, the Blue Riders. Emma Main is re-signed with the Wellington Phoenix. But we've also got Tyler Bindon, Sarpreet Singh, Marco Stamanic, Dibbly Diaz. Roll through some of your favourite Flying Kiwis transfer businesses, starting with the legend Moses Dyer going to Pomp in. That's another joke as well. We don't need to discuss that move, but hit me with your best shot.
Yeah, not Moses Dyer, although I did find a thing where like there was a photo of him at a friendly game warming up in the background. He didn't play, but for some reason he put up like the highlights of his, actually the agency that represents him put up the highlights of his time in League of Ireland, and then the League of Ireland people started wondering, like, has the move fallen down? It's like, this is the full stop. This is the farewell. This is him saying, like, there are no more highlights to add, so here are the highlights. But he is on, it hasn't been announced yet, but he is on the ground in Cambodia, so that's happening.
They're pretty good highlights.
They are great highlights. I wish he had added more of them. I wish he had stayed around and kept doing that. But he's getting paid in Cambodia, so fair enough. And cost of living, I'd imagine, a lot cheaper, a bit more bang for your buck, and he's getting more bucks. So understandable. There was a theme this week in the Flying Kiwis transfers. There was a really big theme, the theme that applied to the two most significant transfers that we saw, and that is that these coaches like their Kiwi players. They like their Kiwi players so much that they want to keep them around at multiple different clubs, because Tyler Bindon gone on loan to Sheffield United for the upcoming season in the Championship. Sheffield United savages, because they recently they got like 90 points in the last Championship season. They finished third, and then they narrowly lost in the playoff finals to miss out on promotion to the Premier League, and then sacked their coach for getting as close to the Premier League as you can possibly get. Still wasn't close enough. That's the kind of expectations they're dealing with. But because they sacked Chris Wilder, they've brought in Ruben Sellers, who was the Reading coach who gave Tyler Bindon his first opportunity a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, whatever it was. So one of his first things that he wanted to do, get Tyler Bindon in on loan. So because of that, he didn't actually get to do the thing I was touting him to do, which is like, at least a week or a few days at preseason with Nottingham Forest to try and make a statement, and then start worrying about the loans. They had such a good loan offer, which, one of the best teams in the Championship. It was sort of like, well, you might as well just do that. So he just went straight to Sheffield United preseason training instead. But I have noticed some pictures of Alex Paulson hanging out at Bournemouth's preseason stuff. So he's at least got the start. And Nottingham Forest haven't really shared a lot yet, because they only started today, overnight in UK time. That was their first day of preseason. So I will be trying to have a dig after this to see if I can find any glimpses of Marko Stamanic. But it's a great low mood for Tyler Bindon, reuniting with a coach he already knows, who already trusts him. To, like, yes, it's not the Premier League, it's not him getting to play in Europe with Nottingham Forest, but just in a simple measurement, last year he was playing for a team trying to make the playoffs in League One. Now he's playing for a team expecting to probably not make the playoffs, probably get automatic promotion from the Championship. That's a huge step up. Like, there's a big difference between those. That's the difference between playing for a team that Auckland FC might be able to beat, to playing to a team that Auckland FC are probably going to lose 3 or 4-0 against. Like that's a big rise and a huge step in his career. And Sarpreet Singh has done something very similar as well, where do you remember Daria Kalazic? You don't? Dutch/Bosnian coach. He was the Phoenix coach for 1 year. Not even 1 year, didn't last, about 2018. The one time they hired someone from outside the A-League.
Was that before or after Big Ernie Merrick?
It would have been after. In those, yeah. After when I say like the coaching lineage, Des Buckingham and Chris Greenacre used to just take turns. In fact, there was once where they did it together as just interim coaches, finishing off every season. So there's a few there, but yeah, after Ernie, before Rudan, and it was a terrible time. He struggled badly. He didn't really. He's a good coach. He's got some good like jobs, particularly in the Netherlands, but he just didn't catch the culture of the A-League and didn't really relate very well, and didn't do very well at his time there. But he did give Sarpreet Singh, not his debut, that came under Des Buckingham the year before, but he did eventually give Sarpreet Singh a few starts towards the end of his time, and Singh was very good there. Went on to, he was a key player for the Phoenix from that point onwards, and up until he left for Bayern Munich. Well, funnily enough, Dario Kalazic recently hired at Baka Topola TSC in Serbia, so the team that finished 7th in Serbia, but a team that has finished in the, 7th was their worst finish for a few years. They've finished sort of in the top 3 or 4 in a couple of recent seasons. It's a good team in the league that Marko Stamenic won not so long ago, 2 seasons ago, with Red Star Belgrade. He's Dario Kalazic unveiled as coach there. First thing he does, let's sign Sarpreet Singh. And to be clear about this move, I think this is a great deal for Sarpreet Singh too. I think it's one of those ones where it's like, I think the average New Zealander maybe underestimates how strong some of these European leagues that they don't really hear about are. This is top division football in Serbia. It was a pretty handy part in fact, I'd argue it was the handiest part of Marko Stamenic's development. He didn't play a whole lot in Copenhagen. He was in and out of that team. He was a pretty key player for Red Star when he was there. Didn't play a whole lot, or at least certainly in and out. Second half of the season, mostly out for Olympiacos after that. Like that's the best part of his actual like on-field club production so far for Stamenic has come in this division. And Singh is linking up with a manager he knows well. This will be the first time he's played top division football since playing for Bayern Munich. So all his loans from Bayern Munich were in German second-tier clubs. Then he played in the Portuguese second tier. This is top flight footy. And top flight footy for a team that has qualified for Europe in 2 of the last 4 seasons as well. So, frankly, if we're leaving the bias at the door here and just judging this transfer based on what Sarpreet Singh has done, he had a nice little spell in Portugal with Udi Leiria, I think it is. Nice little spell. Scored some goals, set up some goals. Didn't seem to be able to stay in the starting lineup for like 4 or 5 games in a row. He had a little bit of Rocco Berry about him in that regard. So like it was nice, but I wouldn't say he blew them away. Had half of a brilliant season with Jan Regensburg on loan there just before he had his hip injury. Also had a season and a half with them, which wasn't as flash. Had a couple of bad loan spells for whatever reason. Like you can say it's fit, you can say it's injuries, not necessarily things that were in his control. But the fact is, like, I don't think he has the production in European football to necessarily justify a move like this. Like, I think you can say that he needed the connection of having a former coach to be able to get him through the door for a deal like this. So I don't look at this as being in any kind of a sideways or a backwards move or anything, like saying, I think this is a big step up for him. I think this is a big boost in his career and a nice fortunate one to have come around as it has. And continuing on this little trend of coaches helping out their former Kiwi players, there was a rumor this morning as well about Elijah Just, who spent last season on loan at SK and St. Pölten in Austrian second division. It's a very similar move to Singh's, really, like both signing with second division teams at the same time. and also both producing some decent stats there and playing for those teams, just a little bit more so because he missed actually like a bit of a chunk of time with injury. But when he was playing consistently, and he did play consistently when he was fit and available, a lot of goals, a lot of amazing goals, like really impressive stuff from him there. And unfortunately, like, well, not unfortunate, it is what it is. St. Polton had they had like a buy now option in the loan, so they wanted to keep him around permanently, but they had this weird situation with this like American investor who's trying to not so much buy clubs, but like just put big money into a bunch of clubs to create a bit of a network. And for some reason, they just decided to completely withdraw their funding of St. Polton late last season. So that's left them broke, basically. They couldn't afford the buy now. Like they would have liked to keep Just. He didn't really want to stay because I think he felt that he had proved that he belongs at a higher level, which frankly he had. Like that's what his performances suggested, and it's what is going to happen. The rumor this morning is that he's going to sign with Motherwell in the Scottish Premiership. So that is an unexpected place for him to end up, but a pretty good one, like a good solid lead. And the reason that would have come about, I have to imagine, is because Motherwell recently hired Jens Berthel Escu as their new coach, like hired him a couple of weeks ago. Very similar thing. Kalazic just took over at TSC and immediately signed Singh. Escu has just taken over at Motherwell and immediately wants to sign Elijah Just. This would be the same Elijah Just and the same Jens Berthel Escu that worked together at AC Horsens a couple of years ago. And also January before last, Escu was at IFK Göteborg in Sweden, and he tried to sign Elijah Just then. And it actually led to a little bit of a situation where Elijah Just wanted to go to Gothenburg, and Horsens said no because the transfer windows don't quite align, so they wouldn't have had time to get someone in as a replacement for the rest of their season. But they still kicked him off their mid-year training camp. Like you need to spend a little bit of time away from the club while this is being sorted out. So it was a little bit of I think that kind of was a breakdown in relationship there where he then finished off the season with them, did as well as he could. But then the next year was when he went on loan to SK and St. Polton. So he still has a year under contract with Horsens, and so this will be a transfer fee move. But the coach who worked with him at Horsens tried to sign him for a different club, is now, it sounds like, going to sign him with another different club. So that's three really significant, like borderline like Tyler Bindon, Sarpreet Singh, Elijah Just, you could argue are all first 11 All Whites right now, leading up to a World Cup. All three of them, assuming this just one goes through, which it sounds, the rumors aren't saying like this is interest, this is possibility like they do about all the Kakache rumors. This is saying on the verge of signing with. So it sounds like very similar to what they were saying about Sarpreet Singh before that move got confirmed. So over the next 24, 48 hours, I suspect that'll be the case. The good thing about following the Kiwi footballers is that they're not really of the level where people get much clout from lying about them when it comes to transfers. So the rumors that you hear are usually true because where there's smoke, there is fire. That's three significant, possibly first 11 All Whites transfers within the past week, all linking up with former coaches who worked with them in the past and want to work with them again.
And Bill Tuiloma is back in action.
Might be a one-hit wonder, we'll see, because he was playing because Tim Ream, the American international, was busy losing to Mexico in the Gold Cup final, which I found hilarious. That's a good Mexican team, though. I actually watched a bit of that game, so it was on ESPN. It was, good fun. Bill Tuiloma gets one chance to play. He's been available for every single game for Charlotte FC in this MLS season. Available, he's not been injured, he's been there, he's been on the bench, he's been in the matchday squad every single week. 20 consecutive unused sub opportunities this year, which is just carrying on from what was happening last year as well, and also unused sub all the time. It's like at some point, maybe every 10 games or something, could you not just give him 5 minutes off the bench just to see like he's not just gathering dust? Or like it's almost just like negligence the way he never gets to play for this team. But when they had their most experienced defending missing, they call up Bill Tuiloma, does a job, whips in a couple of magnificent long balls, those big crossfield switches. His passing range was awesome, and scored a header from a set piece, as he always does. It's actually what he did in the US Open Cup earlier this year when he got a chance to play in some of that sort of cups competition stuff. He also scored a goal, he scored a header from a set piece. He does this all the time. From what I saw of the game, and I watched a fair bit of it, he was still like, it's not dissimilar to what we saw when he played for the All Whites a couple of, against, was it the Ivory Coast game? I think he might have played, where he was rusty. Like he's not at peak fitness. He's hardly been playing football, so obviously you'd expect that. And he didn't quite last the 90 minutes in this game. And even when he is at peak fitness, you get a few there are some defensive lapses with him at the higher levels. It's certainly in the MLS, that's been the case. But the thing about Tuiloma is that he makes up for the lapses defensively by being one of the biggest goal-scoring threats from centre-back that you're going to find in a league like that. And when he was doing so well for Portland Timbers, they understood that. It's like, well, if we have to win 3-2, we'll win 3-2 or whatever. Like, we're just going to let this guy. They even had him taking free kicks and stuff like this, and he was scoring goals that way too. So then he went to Charlotte FC, and they seem to just want a solid defensive centre back. It's like, well, why'd you trade for him? That's not what he does. Like, he's a guy who, there are some flaws and there are some big advantages that he makes up for those. And we saw that in this game where Charlotte, he was involved in both goals. He scored one of them. And then also Charlotte's defense tired late and conceded 2 late goals and drew 2-2. So you got a bit of both of that there. But hopefully he gets more opportunities on the back of this. Hopefully they have a better understanding of who he is. Or if not, maybe he can just I don't know. I guess he's probably just going to have to see out the year. I don't think he'd get a trade necessarily, but he is a free agent after this season. So we'll see what happens after that. He might not be making all white squad's first choice, but he's a very good player who deserves to be playing a lot more than he has been.
And off the top of my head, Portland now have Finn Sermon, who is a very awesome defensive centre-back who just, let's call him the wall, La Pared. He's just always there in the defensive line. Quickly update us on Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix news. I think it's just Logan Rogerson and the Emma Main re-signings.
Logan Rogerson, and also they have now announced what was sort of already known, but Scott Morris, a former New Zealand under-23s goalkeeper who's been over playing for Stoke City, he had a first team contract, but he never got close to the first team. He was just he trained with them, but played he might have only played once for their under-21s. I'm really not sure what happened to him because he just disappeared there, but he was on the books with Stoke City for the last 2 years. Before they played for Christchurch United and was really good in the National League. He's just a really good, solid young Kiwi goalkeeper. He'd be 22 or 23 at this point now, probably 23. Something like that anyway, and he'll come in to be the backup with Michael Vowd moving up to be the number 1, with Alex Paulson moving up to go do preseason training with Bournemouth and is no longer an AFC player. So that's how the hierarchy's been shaken up there. The second guy moves up to number 1, and they sign a New Zealander to be the number 2 goalkeeper. So that's been announced, and the Logan Rogerson one was also expected. I think if he wasn't going to re-sign, there was, even before the season was ended, they were saying they sort of had a verbal agreement to keep him around. But even if he wasn't going to re-sign, they would have announced that by now, as they did with Max Mata not coming back and Alex Paulson not coming back. So to be expected, it's exactly where Logan Rogerson should be, because he is one of those guys who's right on the fringes. Like, he could play his way into the all-white squad for the World Cup. Another big season like he did last year. That's certainly possible. He might only be 1 injury away as it is. So he's, when you've had a career best season, you don't need to go anywhere. Sign that 2-year contract, stick around, keep scoring some goals, keep doing what you're doing so well. That's good business from Auckland FC, more continuity from last season's success into next season. And as for the Phoenix blokes haven't really done anything, but the Phoenix women did re-sign Emma Main, who was the first re-signing of the off-season. They had about 10 players or so, mostly academy players who were already under contract. They've signed 4 new players from outside the team, 3 imports plus Vikerson. Emma Main is the first of the free agents from last year's squad to to announce that she's coming back. So it'll be interesting to see how many more follow her. She is someone who she doesn't seem to play 90 minutes a lot. I think maybe there might be just an element of just got to get that that extra 5% with the fitness or something like that might take her to the next level. But she's certainly shown an ability to score goals. She's the club's second leading goal scorer all time, behind Mariana Speckmaier, who scored 10 goals in one season and is the top scorer. So yeah, this is I think this is because we're not expecting Olivia Ferguson to be back. I think she would have been the top scorer last season. So I believe that makes this the 4th year out of 4 in which their Golden Boot leader for the club doesn't re-sign. So they've never retained their top scorer. So having someone like Emma Main, who's going to be one of your, second or third top scorers most seasons, not going to be the one scoring all of them, but she's going to pop up with enough. That's good business, and that's also good continuity from them. But as I said, it'll be interesting to see how much continuity they keep with a new coach once we're allowed to say Drone Lady's name in a couple more weeks. I think we're a couple of weeks away from that being the case. Interesting to see how many of last year's squad do get retained, or whether they want to mix it up, bring in a bit of a new flavor. We have seen a very high pedigree of import signings being brought in, like a higher pedigree than we've seen in the past. They're not getting players 22, 23, first year out of USA colleges, first professional contract. They're not getting those types of players. They're getting like experienced pros who've played internationally. So that would seem to signal a step up, and also what they would be looking for from the rest of the squad, but that remains to be seen.
Right, let's just zone in on a few Blackcaps T20 pockets to finish with here. Same with Rachin Ravindra, and I think we talked about it on the bonus podcast last Thursday. He hasn't quite stamped his authority on the Blackcaps T20 team, but I think there's an opportunity, and I think he's going to take that opportunity to become certified undeniable first 11 Blackcap T20 cricketer.
He also might score 400 in the Test series. So.
He may do. He's got the basis of him being a little bit underwhelming, averaging 17 with the bat in T20 internationals, 19 in T20s overall. So this is a dude who's got IPL contracts, he's got MLC gigs, he has no issues getting T20 jobs around the world, and there's nothing about his T20 stats that suggests he's one of the best T20 cricketers from New Zealand. But he does average in the low 20s with the ball in both T20 formats, but he didn't bowl in the IPL. So again, that's the thing about MLC. If you see Ravindra bowling, if you see Daryl Mitchell bowling, tells you all you need to know about the standard, because they don't necessarily bowl a whole lot in the bigger T20 competitions. But T20 internationals since the start of 2024, he is averaging 23.4 with a higher strike rate, 138. IPL this year, averaged 27 with strike rate of 128. And MLC, this doesn't include his overnight mahi, but he was averaging 20 with a strike rate of 186. Nowhere in those stat zones is there a certified T20 legend. But we all know Rachin Ravindra has the ability to step into that zone. And I think that's why it's going to be a fascinating tri-series for him in particular, because I expect him to get a lot of game time, and I'm curious to see if he takes that opportunity.
Yeah, I think Rachin Ravindra definitely benefits from good PR. A part of that is based on the fact that he was, amazing in multiple ODI tournaments, but especially that World Cup a couple years ago. You do that, everyone takes notice. You step up in a big situation. There is also probably the Indian connection, which has helped with the heritage helps with getting the IPL gig to some extent, and the fact he did that in India at that World Cup too, whether he has Indian heritage or not, the fact that he scored a bunch of ODI runs there, also significant. He's showing off in front of the Indian fans, but there's no doubt he has the tools to be an all-format wizard for the Blackcaps, but it is not unfair to say that there are guys not getting selected for Blackcaps T20 squads who have better production, like better stats and better numbers than what Ravindra's done so far. But of course, he is Rachin Ravindra, and we do know that he is capable of doing some pretty nutty things with the bats. So this might be the tour that shows that. This will be an interesting test for him for that reason.
The thing about Ravindra is he does have one-day strike rates over 100. So ODIs is averaging 44 with a strike rate of 109. 59 list day games, he's averaging 38 with a strike rate of 103. And the thing, like his test batting, I don't know if his defensive leaving game, I don't think is as good as Kane Williamson or some other batters. But his attacking game is phenomenal. The square drives, clips off the legs, short ball, full ball, whatever it is, he smashes boundaries. He's done it in Test cricket, he's done it in ODI cricket, but it hasn't necessarily come to fruition in the T20 international arena. Another dude on my mind was Adam Milne. Not surprising as a selection as Matt Fisher, but it was an interesting selection for the T20 squad, and he is a very good T20 bowler. T20 internationals averaging 25, T20 average of 23. Has played for the Blackcaps in the last 2 years, or a year and a half, averaging 22.2 since the start of 2024. Recent T20 tournaments, ILT, whatever that is, averaging 25. PSL, averaging no wickets, 8 overs at 11 RPO. MLC, didn't play overnight. He is averaging 8.5 with the ball. So I'd say he's underrated as a T20 bowler for New Zealand. Not always in the mix, not always in the squad because he is often injured, but him and Lockie Ferguson to me are interchangeable. But I think Lockie Ferguson's the bigger Donny, but Adam Milne his stats in T20 bowling are just as impressive as Lockie Ferguson. Then we get to Matt Henry. T20s before the start of 2023 averaging 27. These are T20 internationals after the start of 2023. He's averaging 23. So that's a good little shave of his T20 international bowling average. T20 career average of 23.5. Super Smash average of 23. Last 4 seasons of Super Smash bowling, averaging 25.5, 24.6, 37.5, 8.2. Last summer in the Super Smash, 4.7 RPO. Crazy. T20 Blast as of Monday afternoon, he was averaging 21.6. I think that is a clear progression for Matt Henry. And when you add in the, underrated excellence of Matt Henry, the underrated excellence of Adam Milne in T20 bowling with Matt Henry continuing to improve as a T20 bowler, I think that's bolstered the seam stocks a wee bit. We don't have to stress about Lockie Ferguson. We're not stressing about Trent Boult because he has not signalled any intention to play for New Zealand at all, even less so than Kane Williamson. And we don't have to then just go, well, it's just Jacob Duffy, Will O'Rourke, Zach Folks, and the youngsters. But you still need that kind of experience, solidarity in your bowling unit, as well as the batters we've seen in the Test squad. And I think Adam Milne just lingering around as a T20 mixer and Matt Henry getting better, I think has strengthened the T20 bowling stocks for Aotearoa.
Yeah, because I think Milne was the one you mentioned earlier, as he's the guy who benefited from Ben Sayers being unavailable and Kyle Jamieson being unavailable. It's you keep that selection in context. Like, this isn't the Blackcaps trying to say Adam Milne is going to be the number one man from moving forward. This is the Blackcaps saying they've got a few unavailabilities. Lockie Ferguson is another one on that list. And here is a guy we can plug and play. That's a pretty good guy to be able to plug and play. You know, it's a guy who's taken these bowled some very good spells in international cricket before, and he's a pretty pedigreed T20 player and across the leagues. Like it's a handy fella to be able to just like call up and at a time of need like that. Like, it's good work if you can get it for Adam Milne.
It is quite disrespectful, the Crick Info profiles. They've added the T20 zone, and you've got every T20 competition under the sun, like Adam Milne, T20 cricketer, Major League, PSL, IL, BBL, 100, IPL, The Blast, CL20. There's no Super Smash. Like people,
I bet they don't even mention him winning the Chatham Cup with Wairarapa United in
disgusting.
2008 or whatever it was either.
In all seriousness, the disrespect for the Super Smash is actually quite disgusting to me as well, because I mean, produces some world-class T20 cricketers. Adam Milne, 2021 T20 bowling, T20 international bowling was his worst year, 44 average, and then he's just gone 23.5, 23.6, 22.2 in the 3 years before 2025. Ooh. Mitchell Santner is captain. He's averaging 30, which is a bit higher than the others. So maybe he's got a bit of beef with old Slinky Santner. Is there anyone else on your mind? Or in this one, T20 World Cups for Adam Milne, averaging 44. So he's...
Well, I don't think we're going to see him play at another T20 World Cup, so he might have missed that opportunity, but you know, as I say, decent guy to be able to call up in a situation like this where you know exactly what you're going to get from him, and it's probably going to be pretty solid. I am interested to see Bevan Jacobs play. Like to see him play internationally. I expect he will get good opportunities over this tri-series, and I just want to see what he can do. But also in the same way, I was watching those watching the under-19 basketballers, where it's like, well, you watch like 7 or 8 games of them in the space of 2 weeks or whatever they got up to. Like, you get a good feel for what those players, not just how good they are or what they do, but like the intricacies of their game, like the way Hayden Jones has this little hesitation dribble that he does, where he just kind of like moves like water towards the hoop, or Troy Plumley doing the exact opposite, where he just puts his head down and drives and it's like, get out of his way unless you want to get hurt. Julius Halafanoa showing off all the post moves and a little bit of mid-range stuff as well, and the tip backs and all this. Like, you get not to mention the best of all of those moves is Jackson Ball's little spin move that he has on the dribble, where he just rolls the back, goes around the side. Love that stuff. And I like get an idea of who they are as players, as well as just like talent or how they fit into this team or whatever. So I would like to get to see Bevan Jacobs play a few sustained games in a row, rather than like watching a Super Smash game here or there, which I suppose I could have more diligently tracked him at that point, but there wasn't the same need to when it's not for the national team. So I like to see that, because as you highlighted in the it was him and Eddie Ashok that you highlighted in the newsletter, where it's like, these guys, they're not just trying to be T20 specialists, they want to play all formats, they want to be test cricketers, and they have the skill sets that should lead them towards getting the opportunity to do that at some stage in their career, possibly sooner than anyone expects. So this is this will be good fun to see how he goes. I'm very curious about that stuff. I want to see some classy batsmanship and a few big sixes.
If you're looking for some traits, I'd say you should expect to see a back foot 6 over cover.
That sounds amazing. So
like, obviously, pull shot, slog sweep, they're gone for 6. That's like, we can do that. Anyone can do that. but he's got the back foot 6 over cover, but he's also got the old step hit from the cricketing lingo, step hit over long off, sorry. It's that his ability to hit, his ability to hit sixes off the front foot and the back foot from straight down the ground to point, to me, feels unique. Let alone how hard he hits the ball, like how hard his regular shots are. But you look at any T20 highlights of Bevan Jacobs, he's got this like back foot punch for 6 and effortless, just like when he does do his step hit down the ground, he doesn't even try to hit the ball really. It's just step and swing. And he will middle that ball, and that ball will go for 6. But then you can see when he's doing his little back foot punches, there's like a bit more of a just oomph to the shot, and you can just watch the ball sail. So that's, yeah. I'm just thinking, is there any other things there? I think the faster you bowl to him, the faster the ball will go to the boundary. Like he's got that as well because he's a timer. So he's just trying to catch up to the ball, give the ball a little tap on the head, and the ball will go flying. Someone else then you've also got someone like Zach Folks, who we've talked about his action, we've talked about his variety, and his action and the kind of whippy nature of his deliveries can lead to lots of boundaries. But I've seen it so many times where Zach Folks, he's got the hooping in-swinger, he's got the slower balls, he's got the straight balls as well that don't swing. But his short bowling, if he gets it right, he's in the right zone, the right conditions, he's feeling good. If you're watching a lot of Zach Folks, you'll see a lot of batters having issues with his short bowling. And that stems from his action, how he delivers the ball, and obviously T20 cricket, people are trying to hit him, but they don't have a gauge on the speed and the action of Zach Folks. So I'd say keep an eye on Zach Folks' short delivery, because like his hooping in swing is like that's automatic. You already see that, and someone will get bowled by Zach Folks in this try series. I guarantee it. Quick little bit of trivia to finish. I don't know how many we got. 48 minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know. We have T20 bowlers since the start of 2020. There's only 3. My issue with the counting was how many dudes have taken wickets, but who cares? There's only 3 bowlers out of at least, we've got maybe 30, I'd estimate, who have taken wickets in T20 internationals. There's only 3 averaging over 30. Do you want to have a guess? Which Blackcaps bowlers who have taken a T20 international wicket are averaging over 30 since the start of 2020?
Start of 2020, right. Bit of Scott Kugelheim?
No. He was
a bit better at T20.
He's averaging 19. He's actually one of the better ones.
You did it right.
There's no way you'll get any of them, but that's right.
Daryl Mitchell, Rachin Ravindra, and well, I already used a guess on Scott Kugelheim, so I won't cheat.
Hamish Bennett.
Yo!
He's averaging 33.1. Kyle Jamieson, 36.4. Henry Shipley averaging 70.5.
Yeah, I might have remembered the Shipley one if I'd remembered Shipley himself. I do remember because he didn't play much, but he took a bunch of wickets in ODIs when he did play.
Yeah,
but he
ODIs is his format. But I'm more amazed. There's 30 out of, or 3 out of like 30, maybe 40 bowlers averaging over 30. So we've got like, there's a lot of different dudes, Ajaz Patel, Clarkson, Astle, de Gronholm, and so on. But there's 1, 2, 3, there's 9 dudes averaging below 20.
And only 3 over 30. That's a good ratio.
Well, then there's at least another 10, maybe 15 averaging below 25. So we've got the 3 dudes averaging over 30, then we've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 averaging over 25. So maybe we're actually pretty good at cricket, you know. Maybe we're doing all right at this cricket thing in Aotearoa. Maybe you're doing all right. What was the mindfulness again?
Give me a second.
Yes, a bit of a surprise there, but it was similar things.
I try all things, I achieve what I can.
Just achieve what you can. Do your best today, achieve what you can, because it's enough. And you're good enough. How about that? Have a crack, do your best, big up yourself, love yourself, kia kaha, stay beautiful, church.